Good afternoon again, everybody. It's been a short time ago that I posted Mark's relocation of his rectifier. I've been asked by email a lot recently because I put my email address in the video description on YouTube. And people have sort of emailed me and said, why are people doing this and how do you do it? And whilst it's all in my videos, I understand that there are quite a few of them now with my pratings about the bike, and people obviously aren't scrolling through and watching all the videos to find out why people do this. So I thought I'd post this update really on relocating the rectifier regulator. Now the reasoning behind it is because its stock location is hot and it's dirty, and it's a very, very poor location for an air-cooled electrical component with cooling fins, and they are burning out regularly. I get emails virtually every day from people all over the world to say that their rectifier regulators have fried, is the common expression, and this means the charging light comes on, the battery doesn't charge, and you can run the bike until the battery goes flat. I get lots of emails about this. So relocating it from a hot, dirty place, which is exposed to road dirt and engine heat, and also chain grease is the other common thing that ends up splattering on them, and dirt sticks to it, blocks the fins, and they just burn out. It's a really common problem. So this is just an update, a kind of summary really. This arrow points to where the rectifier regulator is approximately on the bike, so that's what you're looking for. It's not far from the road, as I say, and it's a very silly position for a component like that. This next photograph shows a picture of the rectifier regulator on my own bike as it was, and you'll see here now that it is under the engine, well, under the bike really, at the back of the engine, and it sits on a metal plate. So there it is, there is where it lives normally, and that was on my own bike. So it's already dirty and suffering damage from the road because the paint was coming off it. And I don't have the evap cartridge on my bike, I've removed all that and binned it. But there it is. Now that's the state of mine. Now the grease and what have you can see is basically an accumulation of chain grease, because there's nothing you can do to stop it flinging off. And as you can see on my rectifier, it's losing its paint, it's covered in filth, and it's a very daft location. It's connected by a 4-pin and a 3-pin connector. This is the 3-pin for the alternator output. I've done a separate video about how to undo this and how to connect it back up again, because it's not immediately obvious, but it's dead easy once you know how to do it. So it's worth looking at my video just on how to undo that. That's what's attached to the rectifier itself, and the extension cables that I make have that block terminal on them, so they just plug straight into the existing wiring harness under the bike, and that is the connector that needs a video all about how to do it up. Again, here's another shot. The shelf that you can see with the arrows going over, that is where my evap cartridge was. So you can see that rectifier regulator, connected by the red slide block above it to the wiring harness, is in probably the worst location it could be. And there would ordinarily be an evap cartridge as well right next to it. So there's virtually no airflow there, and it's a hot engine, so they burn out. There is the 3-pin block. Now that attaches onto the rectifier regulator, attaches to a metal plate which has a little bendable metal tab, and that 3-pin block connector just slides onto it. So the first thing to do is undo the 2 bolts that hold the rectifier regulator on, and then snip a cable tie that holds it onto that metal prong there. That's the metal bracket that's secured to the bike engine by 3 bolts, and you can see it's already suffering damage, attrition due to the road and filth, and that is where the rectifier regulator bolts onto. So you'll see that metal tab on the left hand side there, that has a sort of loop of cable on it from the wiring harness. So it's a case of undoing the rectifier regulator, but it's just 2 bolts, which you can see either side of the rectifier, and it will bend that tab, snip a little cable tie, and the rectifier regulator will then drop down a good 4 inches or more. You can see on the left of that picture there, that on the left of the red slide block, there's a loop of cable. So there's plenty of it, and that picture shows the extension cable now plugged in and cable tied. So it's a question of plugging both the extension cable, the 3-pin one goes under the bike and plugs in there, and then you bring the wire itself, the cable itself, around the front of the swinging arm. This picture shows the 4-pin connector, and it's on the right hand side of the tool tray, and it's possible to pull that 4-pin block that's attached to the wiring harness under the bike. It's possible to pull that upwards under the side panel, the right side panel, and route both cables up the frame tube under the tank, and then put them through the loop, the metal sort of bracket that holds the oil cooler on. And the rectifier regulator itself needs a small metal bar or a plate, and it uses 2 existing threaded holes under the lower steering yoke. They hold little clamps for the brake pipe and the ABS wire on the one side and the speedo wire on the other. There's another bike that's had this modification done. Now again, the question asked is, how much is the tension on the wires? There isn't any, and because it's smack bang on the pivot point of the steering yoke, it's not moving through anything appreciable at all, probably a centimetre from left to right, from full lock to full lock, because it's actually on the point of the steering yoke that actually spins, as it were. And these next shots show various people's bikes with the rectifier. That's my own. I just used a little galvanised bracket, cut it in half, an L bracket, and drilled 2 holes in it. And it, as I say, it uses the existing threaded holes on the steering yoke anyway. So you just use the bolts, original bolts for the rectifier that held it onto the big metal plate, and then just attach that to a small metal rod. It's easy, really. Loads of people have done it. Here's a picture of another bike as well. So it's just a case, really, of going under the bike, disconnecting the rectifier, the 4-pin connector block and the 3-pin connector block. Then you pull the 4-pin up through the swinging arm, gap between the swinging arm and the frame, under the right side panel, and the bigger 3-pin red slide block you connect under the bike, and run both extension cables up the frame tube. You don't need to remove the fuel tank, you just prop the rear end up, but it is easier if you take the tank off, and I've done a video about that. It really is easy to do. It's not difficult to remove the fuel tank, and it would make it easier to fit this. It's about an hour's job, I think, really. As you can see, people have used metal plates, brackets, and if you look at that photo there, on the left and the right of the rectifier, you've got some hex nuts, and they're fitting into the pre-existing threaded holes on the steering yoke, and it's in a clean position at the front of the bike. It's not getting any heat from the engine, and it's in the cool airflow at the front of the bike, which enables those cooling fins to work properly. So that's a sort of summary. I mean, my email address is in the video. If anybody's got any questions about it, just drop me a line. and the cables I manufacture are plug and play, so you just basically, there's no soldering, there's no cutting wires or anything, you just plug it in basically. There's no voltage drop whatsoever, that's been tested, and it results in a happier, cooler, cleaner rectifier regulator. So that's what it's all about. So to those people who, several people who've emailed me and said, why do people do this? I hope that clarifies it a little bit. My own bike, it's been on 9 months and it's absolutely fine. So that is why people do it, and that's how they do it. But if anybody's got any questions, you can always email me, and I can answer any questions that you may have. But it's a well worthwhile doing mod to do, really, because rectifier regulators burn out. I get a message probably every 2 days from somebody, and after relocation there hasn't been a single failure so far, touch wood. So there you have it, folks. In the meantime, ride safe, and I'll be posting another project that I'm going to do over the next few days, and I'll get back to you soon. So take care, and I'll post again. Bye for now.